How many podcasts, how many businesses, how many entrepreneurs are out there right now that you wish you had seen from day one? How many lessons are you facing in your day-to-day business life or personal life could they have taught you just through watching them in real time? That is exactly where we come in. Hello, I'm Callum Richards and welcome to the Real Journey podcast. No one, and I mean absolutely no one you look up to is special. They weren't born with any special gift, they weren't born with any special talent. Whether it's Elon Musk, whether it's Jeff Bezos, whether it's somebody like Joe Rogan or Mr. Beast, they were not born with that gift. They had to start at the very bottom, they had to start somewhere. And that's exactly what we're doing right now. We're starting our business from the very, very bottom. Right now, I am, as we speak, a 4-figure business in the video editing world. And I want to show you everything that I do on a day-to-day basis via a weekly podcast. I want to tell you how I close clients. I want to tell you how I'm growing my business. I want to tell you my next plans, my next steps. I want to help you help yourselves. I want to help you grow your business or grow your dreams of having a business and show you what it actually really takes. Not the Hollywood flashing lights, not all of these documentaries and all of the past experiences once they're making £10,000 a day or a week. I want to show you in real time what I'm actually doing and how you can implement it into your actual lives right now. The main topic of today is the fact that no one is special. You don't have to look at yourself and think, I haven't got this, or I haven't got that. They've got all of these attributes that I don't have anything to do with. You don't have to think like that. All you have to do is pick a skill or pick a product or pick a business model and start. And I know this matter of fact because I have done so many different business models and quite frankly failed at a lot of business models as well. I tried to look at selling things online and it just never worked. I've tried to look at growing side pages and it worked to a degree. And now, as we speak, I'm focusing on growing a video editing business or a podcast promotion business. And this is another thing that I want to focus on when I say no one's special. When you look at any successful entrepreneur or any successful business, a lot of them didn't actually start in the position that they are in now. Many of them had to pivot and find different aspects, different things, or different areas where they wanted to be successful. It wasn't just an overnight, oh no, I want to make the best phones in the world or get people onto Mars or make the best cars. They didn't find it overnight. They had to try all different things, push to try and make them successful, or pivot and try and make them successful. But the key factor's still there. They still had to start. They still had to have ideas and they still had to keep turning up every single day. And that's what you can do. You can do that right now. You can make that decision right now to start and just keep turning up every day. And hopefully, some way or form, I can help you do that and help you decide to do that as well. That is a personal insight of mine. That is something that I have done. As I said, I've done many businesses and not made them very successful because they weren't making any money whatsoever. And as soon as I realised I got to the 4-digit mark with this business, that's when I've decided to start this podcast, because I thought I don't want to be at the point where I'm making 5 figures, 6 figures, 7 figures every single year, because then it's almost useless to you as the viewer. I'm not in the same position as people who are just starting a business because I've already put in all of that work to get to where I wanted to get to. I want to show everybody from the ground up. So there's no millions behind me, there's no backing, there's no venture capitalists trying to come in and acquire my business. I'm not selling anything. I am literally growing my business day to day. As it still stands, I still have a 9 to 5. I still have to get up, I still have to go to work, I still have to come home and work on the side of my business. I still and doing pretty much everything on my own. There's no massive amount of team behind me that's backing me to help me do everything. It is exactly where you could find yourself in 12 months, or hopefully sooner. Hopefully I can teach you a few lessons that I'm learning, so you don't have to go through that pain or go through that experience. What I'd like to do with these podcasts is also touch on a relatable quote on everything that we discuss, so you can actually see that there's even other successful businessmen who speak about what I'm speaking about, but the difference is they've made it. And at the moment, as we speak right now, I haven't. So this one is from Steve Jobs, and it is: the only way to do great work is to love what you do. If you haven't found it yet, keep looking, don't settle. Now, I find this quote a little bit hard to stomach in the sense of, I don't believe you have to have a passion for something in order to make money. I personally believe you can just have a passion for making money, for making yourself better, for wanting to grow a business, because that being the passion itself is enough to keep you going, is enough for you to turn up every single day. I never woke up one day and had a passion for video editing. I found myself in video editing. I enjoyed it enough to keep pursuing it. And then all of a sudden I started to make money from it. And I decided to keep pushing and keep growing the business the way I see is best. But that being said, I feel that it is a lot easier if you're passionate about an aspect of your business, or passionate about an aspect of what your business can bring to you. I feel if you do it just for money's sake and nothing else, that makes it a bit more difficult, because if you get paid at the end of 1 month, say 600 grand, you might not be as pushed to then turn up the next day and to then keep turning up, because you've made what you would call at that point big money. So I do think you have to find something outside of the money. For me, it's providing a good life for my family. It's setting a legacy. I want my last name to be remembered. I want people around me to know he worked hard, he pushed himself, he pushed people around him to do better. That's my personal view, and the whole reason I want to do this. You do have to a degree, find that yourself, because everybody's got a different opinion of what big money is. Some people might get an extra £1,000 a month and they're happy with that. Some people might get an extra 10 or 20 or 30 or 40, and there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with getting that extra amount of money through the work that you do and being happy with it. But that's something you do have to identify, is what is it all for? What's your dream goal? What would you like? For me, as I say, I want to be the best of the best. So I want £1 million a week. He says that as he earns just about four figures. But as I say, this is the whole point of this, is to set more goals, how I'm going to reach them, so that in the hope of 12 or 2 years, 12 months, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years down the line, you can see he actually started from there and then got to here, and it's possible for anybody to do it. There's actually a test that I started doing on myself to make me start to realise that everybody around me, or everybody above me in terms of the business world, in terms of the entrepreneurial world, everybody above me is pretty much similar to me. And the test I started to do was, I would just thought of every successful person as just a human. I stopped putting so many people on pedestals, because it's so easy to do, because they have so much. When you look, and you'll hear me refer to him quite a lot in this podcast, but I think it's very easy because he's at the top echelons of where he is somebody like Elon Musk. Because when you look at somebody like that, who's putting people in space and building cars and pretty much trying to run a country as well, or trying to co-run a country, it's very easy to knock yourself down, and it's very easy to think they must have had something special. How else would they have got to where they've gotten to if they didn't have anything special? And the big breaking point for me was genuinely realising that he's just a man. There's no alien life form coming down and feeding him all this information. There's no special gifts that he had over me. And when I say that, I understand that everybody's different. So some people might be able to concentrate a bit more. Some people might need to focus on other things or multiple things at once. Some people might be better at reading. Some people might be more physical. So I understand everybody has their differences. But at the same time, if you look at every successful person, their differences are what they almost leaned into to get to where they wanted to get to. So whatever difference it is that you think you have, or any excuse that you want to give yourself for why you can't have what they have, try and look and flip it into a positive. So I know, again, personally myself, I thought I started too late. I started my business roughly about 4 years ago, and I thought I started too late. I was 23 or 24. In this day and age, you're seeing 18 to 21-year-olds with the Lambos and the Rolexes flowing through Dubai. And it can almost be very disheartening, because you do sort of think, if they've done it at that age, what hope have I got? But that is, again, something you do have to 100% knock out of yourself, because the reason, there might be fundamental reasons of why they got to where they got to that you will never know. They might have had a relative that's helped them. They might have had a relative who had already done 50% of the work and they just had to come and finish another 50%. There might have been certain opportunities that they were provided that you weren't. But the idea of giving up because they had those opportunities doesn't make any sense. To me personally, because I believe regardless of the opportunities that other people have been given, I've been given the opportunity to wake up every day and to push and to make it as possible for myself to get to where I want to get to. That's all the opportunity that I want. Because I think when you do get to that point, and it can be hard, I can definitely understand that when you're grinding away every single day and you're not seeing the results, it can definitely be difficult. No successful person will argue that. No one will say it was just easy to do and it was just a walk in the park. And if they do, I don't believe them. But I think at the same time, you've got to have that vision on the horizon of, when I get there, I know I can say I did it all. I know I can say I did it all myself. It wasn't down to any other external factors. I didn't win the lottery. It wasn't Bitcoin, or it wasn't NFTs, or it wasn't getting lucky with that. It was because I turned up every single day. I worked hard. I knew what I wanted to do. I knew who I could be. And I just kept fighting for it. And I think the power that you get from something like that is truly, truly incredible, because nobody's going to be able to take anything away from you at all. Again, when you look at other, say, influencers or other, say, Bitcoin winners or streamers, those sorts of people, and I've got nothing wrong with them. At the end of the day, they've still had to work hard. There are still, many of them started off getting 1 view, 10 views, 20 views, or making no money with Bitcoin. Or I think lottery winners are a little bit of an exception. I think lottery winners are where you look and you think you did just get lucky. But they still had to buy the ticket, I guess. And they still, buying the ticket was pretty much all they had to do. But there is still some aspects where you can look. Life is a bit lucky sometimes. If you had bought the ticket, you might have split half of it with them. So there's twos and throws, backs and forths, and with all of it. But even with the influencer type of people or the streaming type of people, they've still had to turn up every day. Majority of them would have still had to do something every single day and had that long-term vision, and would have had to think, I have to keep doing this. Even though my video just got 17 views, I still have to keep doing it. And that's where I think for most of them that way, that's where the passion come into it. They had a passion for a game, or they had a passion for doing pranks, or they had a passion for a certain aspect of it. And therefore it was easier for them to keep going into it. It was easier for them to think, okay, I'm going to keep going. Because I'm just, in a sense, they're just sort of making videos. But I will vouch in a way where it is very disheartening putting your work, because that's what you do when you're making videos. That's your work. Even if you're making videos for other people, you put your time, your effort, your touch into it. And when you do that and you put it out into for the public to see and nobody likes it and nobody engages with it and nobody shares it, that can be very, very disheartening. That can hit on your ego massively to not want to do it anymore. So in a sort of, I guess in a little bit of a way, to the ones that did start from the bottom and work their way up to the top, I can have a bit of that admiration, because I know at some point they would have got those videos that did crap, or they would have got those pieces of content or some of those business aspects. They would have put it out there and it would have done bad, and they would have had to have overcome that to get to where they wanted to get to. So again, even those people, they're not special. They just did something consistently. They just picked. And again, this is where luck can come into it. But you can be lucky with the timing that you choose to do a business. So for example, podcast could be a good one. Joe Rogan picked a very good time to do his podcast, because it wasn't 5 years too early where people weren't really paying attention to it. And it weren't 5 years too late where big brands had already been established. I still personally think there's a massive, massive space for podcasts, because if you compare the amount of podcasts there are to YouTube channels or to licensed businesses, it doesn't even scratch the surface. And I feel that the mainstream channels are definitely going to start dropping and the podcasts are going to take over. But I do understand how daunting it can feel looking at the likes of Diary of a CEO or On Purpose, or again, Joe Rogan Experience. They're huge and they pull in massive, massive numbers every single week. And to try and put your podcast up against that, especially in the beginning, is going to be overwhelming. It's massively overwhelming. I know I've been looking at multiple podcasts that I like the look of, that I listen to myself, and thinking, oh, it's insane, the numbers that they're pulling. But I'm not comparing myself to those podcasts, not at this point anyway. I'm comparing this episode to the next episode. That's it. That's all I'm comparing. Because if I can see a progress within myself, then I will know I'm getting towards where I want to get to. And that's what it should be across the board with everything. Is you might see other people absolutely smashing it, and I know I see it every single day. You only have to go onto YouTube or TikTok and somebody is flexing in a Lambo in Dubai with a Rolex. You can go, you can pretty much guarantee it. But you're not comparing yourself to those people. You're comparing yourself to the person you are right now that's either starting a business or thinking about starting a business or knows someone that's starting a business. You're comparing yourself to that person and the person you're going to be when you've started it, when you've grown it, when you've got to the point where you feel you're successful. And that's how it should be. It shouldn't be about all the other external things. It should be about your own internal growth. And that's a personal lesson that even today I have to keep reiterating in my head. It's not all about everybody else. It's about me and what I'm getting better at. Whilst I'm creating these podcasts and going through this journey of making this better and more valuable for the audience, I want to make sure that I'm including questions from you guys. So every week I will put on my social media pages, which is Instagram and X. I will be putting on there the opportunity for you guys to ask me questions. Now, if you're not on those platforms, I am on the likes of TikTok and I am also on, obviously, YouTube. You also have access to my website, which is crvideoeditor.com. There you'll find links to all of my socials, but more importantly, you'll be able to see my email address. If you'd like to ask me any questions, regardless of what stage you're at in your entrepreneurial journey, or whether you've started yet and you're trying to find that motivation to do it, by all means, and please do feel free to drop me an email, drop me a message. I will 100% reply to you there and then, but I will also include your questions within the content, especially if I feel that it's something that the rest of the audience or everybody else can basically benefit from, because I feel we struggle a lot of the time thinking that we're all in one boat and nobody's in there with us. And what actually tends to happen is there's so many people in so many different aspects of the business world or in the personal development world just on its own that have either experienced it or are experiencing it or are going to experience it. And it's great to share the knowledge that everybody's gone through, because what might work for me might not necessarily work for another person, but it's at least going to give them a starting point or a little bit of a blueprint of exactly what they can do when they're in that situation. So, as I say, when it comes to the questions, you can message me on any of my socials. You can leave a comment in this YouTube video. It's also going to be on the likes of Rumble as well. And it will also be uploaded as an audio file onto the likes of Spotify, Apple, Amazon. Any reviews or any comments that you want to leave on there and any questions, feel free, because I will absolutely get back to you in one way or the other on every single question that you ask. If you'd like to be mentioned within the show when you ask a question, just drop it in below and say if you can shout me out, here's some of my socials. I'm happy to do that as well, because again, I want this to be a community where we're all building each other up. And if I've got the chance to give you guys a mention, I'll 100% do it, because you're helping me by asking questions that other people want to know the answer to. So for this week's questions, I asked my good friend AI or ChatGPT to generate some user questions just whilst we get the ball rolling. And this will be something I do until we start building up a good quantity of questions. So the one that ChatGPT asked me is, who do I look up to? Now, I find this a little bit difficult because there's multiple aspects of who I look up to. There's obviously, as a starting out podcaster, there's people like James English. There's people obviously like Joe Rogan. There's people like Steve Bartlett that I look up to, and how they grew their shows, how they've managed to almost change the whole realm of podcasting and suit it for their needs. They are all obviously interview-based podcasts, which I do think are one of the best, plainly because the lengths and the detail that they can go into, rather than having an advert every 15 minutes and then ending the show after an hour and just cutting up the best bits. It's full length. You see everything. You see the good bits, the bad bits, the weird bits. It's literally full length, and they just show you pretty much the raw footage, which is great. The perfect thing about podcasts. So in terms of who I look up to and who I aspire to be like in a podcasting world, those three would definitely be up there. But in a business world, I feel it's very difficult not to mention names like Elon Musk, just again because of the sheer angles that he's hitting across the board in the different businesses that he's going into, in the way that he's able to run so much in such a... He's got the same 24 hours as all of us right here, and he manages to run 3 or 4 businesses, have these connections with incredible people. I mean, Trump, regardless of your opinions of him, is literally the president of the United States, and Elon Musk has got a relationship with him. He also goes to these different countries and speaks to different people. And he, as well as having, as far as I can remember, I think he's got something like 8 or 11 kids, which I know he's not going to be there all the time, but he's still got a very hectic life, and you don't ever see him losing it. You don't ever see him stressing in those senses. So I think for that, you've got to have, again, regardless of your own personal opinions, you've got to have a bit of admiration for him to being able to do that. And I have to say the same of anybody who's running a big business. So the likes of someone like Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, I know they're the top 4 companies, but it's hard not to mention their names when it comes to inspiration, because they're at the top of their game. They've been at the top of the game for years. They got into a very lucrative field in terms of technology very, very early, and didn't drop off. How many chances did Microsoft have to potentially drop off and fall because another software company come in? And then same with the likes of Facebook. I know it's now Meta, but again, the way that they've adapted and changed, they don't just do this bit of business now, they now do this, they now provide this, they're now innovators in their own spaces. It's hard to not have a bit of respect regardless of the opinions that people have of them, and I know mine aren't the greatest, I feel like it's important to separate what they do on a personal level and then what they do on a business level, because they are all still multi-billionaires. So whatever they do on camera, or whatever political views or social views that they might have, and I know a lot of it can be based around the idea of censorship, regardless of any of that, they are still massively successful people. And I say that for the other sides of the likes of Dana White as well. I think he's a big inspiration in the sense of he took something that he just sort of enjoyed and ran with the opportunities that were coming at him, and now he just loves it. He just loves it. Any interview I've ever seen about Dana White, it's always been just how much he loves doing what he does. And that's, again, something to take a bit of inspiration from, is if you find that love and that joy, it's very hard for you to not want to keep pushing and to not want to keep going. I'm finding it very difficult, I'll be honest, to nail it down to one in particular person, because it's very hard to back somebody 100%. It's very hard to say, I agree with this entrepreneur or this business owner without any doubt. Because there's going to be aspects of everybody's views or everybody's life that you don't necessarily agree with. And I bring this up now because I'm also going to mention a name that's very big on podcasts, which is Andrew Tate and Tristan Tate, and the professors within his online school, The Real World, likes of Dylan Madden. These are people, again, that I found massive inspiration from. But I also want to highlight that it does not then mean I agree with every single word out of their mouth, but from an inspirational point of view of how they have tackled life, of how they've achieved what they wanted to achieve, how they've spread the message, the business models that they've all used are genuinely incredible, and was actually quite revolutionary in the influencer space that nobody had actually ever thought of, and so many people now are trying to replicate. So I always want that to be remembered, of no matter what person I mention on this podcast, it does not then mean that I will back 100% of what they say, because I don't think you can back 100% of what anybody says, especially when you've lived a bit of life yourself. I think, and again, no disrespect, I think when you're 13, 16, 18, maybe even 20, it's very easy to take on board everything that one individual says, because you've not got much experience yourself. I'm a little bit older than that, and I've lived a bit of life myself, so I can understand the messages that they put, and I can understand and I can respect where they've got to just based on a business level. Not, oh, he said this and it's terrible, or he said this and it's great. I'm going to steal a bit of a quote from him now. The world is never black and white. It is grey. And there's never a good side or a bad side. But you can just have your side. And you can agree with 95% of what somebody says and adapt it onto your life. And then you can disagree with 5% and not entertain it or listen to it. The best thing you can do is listen to it. Ask yourself if it affects you or if you agree with it in any way, shape or form. And if you don't, then leave it. The worst thing you see is when somebody says something you don't like and you spend time and effort getting angry at it. That's what I don't understand. You're putting your own energy into actually hating something. That to me doesn't make sense. But I'll go back to the topic. In terms of inspiration, I look for inspiration across multiple people, because I believe multiple people is what we're all made up of. We're all parts of our father, we're all parts of our mum, we're all parts of our sisters and brothers and friends. We're all influenced by multiple people. What you should ask yourself is, why they influence you? Why have you allowed that influence to take place? And is it beneficial? And I think if you're looking at the incredibly successful people that we've got around us today, you should be asking yourself, why would I not allow them to influence me? And if you can come up with some reasons, then just isolate them and just think, is it just this topic or is it everything about them? So there's no single individual for me. So another question, again, this was generated by AI, is who genuinely inspired me to take the plunge and grow my business? So the who of this is a little bit difficult to pinpoint. I have to almost give myself a little bit of credit here, as even from a young age, I always felt I wanted more. Now, I've been very lucky with my life in the sense of I met somebody that I loved at a very young age. I built what you'd call the normal family or the nuclear family. And I did that at a very young age, and I got to a point where I thought there's 30, 40, 50-year-olds who would love to be in my position and then they wouldn't push for any more. Because I was so young, I got to that position and sort of asked myself, well, what else am I meant to do now? I've got the people that I love, I've got my house, I've got a job, I keep on top of my fitness and my money. What else am I meant to do now? And that was almost the big push of, I need to start a business. I need to find a way to keep growing and keep climbing a mountain, because if I don't, I feel I'm gonna stay in the same place and stagnate for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and I'm gonna regret it completely. So there was no individual, again, that pushed me to make the plunge. I think it was more, I got to a point where I just needed more. And a business was the most logical thing, because I've always enjoyed the idea of being a businessman. I say this term, a bit of a mover and a shaker. I like the idea of making calls. I like the idea of being on my laptop in coffee shops and sending emails and making deals and speaking to clients and having meetings, but doing it for myself and not for another business. The idea of management's never, in a corporate job or in a corporate business, it's never really appealed to me personally, because I saw so many people as I was growing up climb that ladder and then just get booted straight off it. And not that it worried me, but I just thought that I'd be too annoyed to be in that position where I've worked 10, 20, 30 years of my life to help this business and they just kick you aside. And it will happen. It does happen. It's an unfortunate part of the corporate world, of big businesses. They don't care. And you can understand why, because when they're dealing with multi-million or multi-billion pound portfolios, one individual doesn't mean a massive amount to them. But that threw me off the idea of ever climbing up the corporate ladder. But I knew I needed to do more. And it's just so happened I sort of fell across video editing. Really genuinely enjoyed it. Done it for a few years to grow another form of business or to grow affiliate marketing. And it didn't work, unfortunately. And then recently decided to actually start the business based on me, based on my personal brand, based on how I feel I can grow a successful video editing business and potentially move into other avenues. And that was the big kick for me, is realising I've got a skill, I can speak to people, I feel I can speak in front of a camera, we will find out. So let's go for it. And just taking that risk and realising the whole topic of this podcast is, if somebody else has done it, there is absolutely no reason I can't do it, because my ego is too big to admit that they're special and I'm not. So if they're special, I'm special, and I'm going to make it happen. So my ego is probably the best answer to that one, if I'm being completely honest. Another question generated by AI is, how would I like to inspire people? And I think I've said this a few times during this first episode, but I'd like to reiterate. I want any questions that you have to be sent over, and if I don't know the answer, I will give you my best version of an answer, or I will do my absolute best to give you an answer that's actually applicable. I want to inspire people to just take those steps, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a business. It could just be a sense of, you start to do a few more things within your job, or you start to maybe just have a side hustle of earning money on the side, or just enjoying something that you or taking something that you enjoy and using it either in a business model or using it as a way to get on the camera and speak to the camera and show your expertise within that field. I want to teach people, and I want to teach people in real time, because I know that there was so many lessons I've learned, and there's going to be so many lessons I want to learn, that you can't really find a pen and paper way of doing. It is just trial and error. And whilst that, in my opinion, is the best way, I do think, again, another story, I had to make my website. I have no web developing skills whatsoever. I actually almost avoid my laptop apart from when it comes to video editing, because I'm just, when it comes to the finding domains or generated anything, I don't even know any technical terms to speak about. Yeah, I'm just not a big fan of it. But I forced myself to make my own website, and don't get me wrong, the platform that I used was amazing, and I'm not going to plug it here because this is all obviously ad free. But I remember trial and error, and just literally testing, clicking every button that was on the screen until either it worked or it didn't, and then I had to find another way to do it. And now, when I've had to go back and forth into it to make little changes, it's a lot easier. So I do definitely think trial and error is the easiest way for people to learn and the most effective way for people to learn. But I also know that there's going to be people that will run into that first hurdle and it will throw them because they've not got anything behind them to back them. They've got nothing to keep them accountable. They've got nobody to ask because they've got nobody around, because some of the life decisions that they've made or some of the positions that they've been put into have stopped them having that network around them. And I'd like to inspire people to either keep pushing regardless of what external factors you have around you, or to just ask a question, to just reach out and just think, oh, I might not know what to do, but they might. And the worst that they can say is no. That's the worst thing that anybody can say to you when you message them. If you're asking a genuine question and you've genuinely tried yourself, is no. And I'd like to think people are nicer than that. I'd like to think people would actually try to help. So that's my big inspiration. I want to inspire you guys to take the steps that you've either been putting off, to do the things that you've been putting off, and to just reach just that level above. Even if it's not you want to be a multi-trillionaire, but you just push yourself that level above to get to where you can get to. That's my biggest source. They're the biggest people I'd like to inspire. It's just anybody who's trying to better themselves. Another aspect of this podcast is going to be what I'm calling Win of the Week. And this is another way that you guys can get involved in the show. I'd love it if I can start hearing wins that you guys have had. Doesn't even have to be financial. It can be the fact that you created your own website. It can be the fact that you started posting online and posting a video of your face. It can be the fact that you actually did speak to a client, or you sold a product, or you've done your side business and you've made some money. Anything that you're proud of and you want to share, I want to hear it, and I want to give some recognition, because again, you might not have people around you that are going to praise you. You might not have people around you at all. So when you do something, it's almost like that own internal celebration, and then you carry on. And whilst that's good, you should celebrate the successes you've achieved on your own. Because I know I do. I know when I built that website, I was over the moon. Regardless of what anybody around me said, I was over the moon. I had achieved something well out of my comfort zone and it looked good. In my opinion, I'm going to get people coming on now saying it's terrible, but I felt good. And I want that for others. I want people to be able to celebrate themselves, but then also think, oh no, I'm going to submit this to Callum. And I'll be honest, I think most of them I will, until it gets to a ridiculous number. I want to celebrate everything, because everybody should be proud of certain aspects of their life, and especially if it's well out of your comfort zone, or especially if it's something you've never done before, and you should have other people around you to cheer you on. So, as I say, this is going to be called Win of the Week. It works the same way. You can hit me up on my socials, which is ideally going to be Instagram and X, because that's where you can actually DM me. You'll find that under CR Video Editor, or there should be a link in the description below if you're watching this on YouTube. If you're listening, you can go to crvideoeditor.com and you'll find a link to all of my socials there, which again, you can send an email over with your win. If you'd like to include a video or you'd like to include a voice note, by all means you can do. If you don't feel comfortable, that's not a problem. What you can do is just give me a little description of what your win is, how you did it, what you're proud of about it, and I'll either read it out or I'll use an AI voice generator to read it out. But any way that you feel comfortable and that you're going to send it in, feel free to, because I definitely want to build a community of people that are happy for other people. And another way you can do it is dropping it in the comments. But the one aspect I would ask is if there can be some sort of photographic, I say proof, just something something I can share realistically. If I wanted to post it on YouTube and you were happy for me to do it, I can post it on there. Just make sure any key credentials are blacked out. We don't want to be giving people your bank details on YouTube. I'll notice that though, to be honest. I'll notice that and I can either block it out or not include it. But it's definitely a big aspect of what I want to include within these podcasts is everybody's winning and we're all winning together. And that's exactly how it should be. That's what platforms like this should be used for, is to celebrate all of us getting somewhere together. It will go a little bit something like, this is Sally. Sally sold 16 hair scrunchies for the first time on her e-commerce store on TikTok. She made a total of $52, and you can find Sally on Instagram, X, and she's also just started up her YouTube channel where she shows you how to plait your own scrunchies. Something like that. A little bit more delivery. I'll work on that. That's definitely something I'll need to improve on. But just to give you a general idea of how we'll run through the wins of the week. So start getting them in as soon as possible, because I want to start shouting people out as soon as possible. Same with your questions. As well as the wins of the week, I'm also going to include my very own personal tip of the week. So something that I will recommend to you guys where you can improve, or maybe it's an actionable that you can take that will benefit you in some way, shape or form. They're going to be a bit more detailed than just doing 10 push-ups, because I don't want to turn this into some fitness channel. I want it to be an actionable that is genuinely going to improve the trajectory of your business or your entrepreneurial journey. There might be occasionally here and there a post to listen to or a book to read, but they're never gonna be incentivized by ads or sponsors, because I want it to be a genuine benefit and I want it to be something that I think you guys will get value out of, not something that's there to make me money, because I don't agree with that personally. So my tip of the week for this week is to genuinely ask yourself on a daily basis, what is stopping you from doing the next part of your journey? What's actually stopping you? And I want you to not ask yourself in a silly way of, oh, why can't I do that? I want you to genuinely sit and think, if you're about to start selling a product, what's stopping you? Is it sourcing the product? If it's sourcing the product, can you look somewhere else for it? If it's the branding and you can't work out the branding, do you think you can check out YouTube, or is there anybody in your network you can ask that could potentially help you with the branding? Is there a way you can outsource it for cheap on the likes of Upwork or Fiverr, or ask AI? You could ask ChatGPT to suggest softwares where you could go and create the branding yourself. Is it a sense of you want to open up a YouTube channel but you're uncomfortable in front of the camera? Ask yourself, why is it you're uncomfortable in front of the camera? Is it just you don't want to show your face? Is there a way to bypass that? Could you potentially do live so you've got no choice but to show your face there and then? I want you to look at your roadmap or look at your plan or however it is you go about your day, and I want you to look at the next hurdle or the current hurdle you're facing and genuinely ask, what is stopping me from beating this? And when you genuinely ask the question, you don't ask it as a blasé sort of rhetorical question of, oh, I don't know why I can't do it. When you actually ask, what's stopping me? Why can't I get there? This is actually stopping me, okay? How can I overcome this? I could potentially do this. I could potentially do this. I could potentially do this. And what you'll start to find is you'll realise that the problems that you keep facing and you think that they're huge can actually be overcome very quickly. And what you tend to find once you start doing that at each stage, every time you get stuck or every time you're worried about what you're going to do next, every single time you start to do that, you get better at solving the problems quicker. So you don't have to sit down and write it. You can actually just sit back. This isn't working. Why is it not working? Case in point, when I was doing the website, I keep referring back to that, but I'm very proud of it. There was a certain way I couldn't get a plugin or I couldn't get a widget. For some reason, it wasn't working. I never knew what a widget was. So I literally sat there for a good 5-10 minutes, just clicking every button. There's got to be a way. There's no way I've come onto this website or this software and it's not going to allow me to have. I wanted a drop down box, and I kept thinking, there's no way it's not going to let me have it. Of course, I'm going to be able to have it. Every website has them. All websites have them. There's no way this one doesn't. And I literally just kept trialing and erroring, Googling. I'm not going to lie. I didn't chat GPT, but I did Google it. And I eventually got past it. And there was no sense of getting annoyed, or there was no sense of giving up, or there was no sense of like, I'm just not going to have it. I knew it could be done. So we all know 100% there's a way to do it. And there's 100% that we can find a way to do it. Why am I not going to just keep pursuing until it's done? And as soon as I did it, it wasn't even a recognition in my head. I sort of did it, moved on to the next part of the website. Because I've done that so many times, I've never really, since I've started this journey, I've never really sat and just thought it can't be done. But there's 100% a way this can be done. It might have to be a bit different than what I was thinking, but there's definitely a way this can be done. And if you sit and you think about that and you keep doing that on a daily basis, or every single time you come up against a roadblock, you will start to get better to where you're just solving your problems in real time as they're coming across. So definitely start asking yourself daily, what is stopping me from progressing? A key aspect of this is also going to be looking over your past week or looking over your past month or your past year and realising that you are only, especially for those who have started, for those that haven't, it might not hit you as much yet, but there will be a point where you'll look back and you have to thank the version of yourself that just had the balls to start. Regardless of how little they knew or how smart they thought they were, and they actually realised that, oh, okay, it's actually a lot harder than what I thought it was, or it's a lot more frustrating, or it's not overnight. There's a version of you out there that just started, that just one day, for some reason, whether they had enough with their job, whether they had a dream about something and they just had to, there was a genuine version of you that just decided to take that leap, that just thought, I'm going to do it today. And there might have been ups and downs on the way. It's not very easy to start and just stay consistent. I'm not going to say to people that it is, because there's days where you'll wake up and you don't want to. But you still started. And once you've started and you keep that consistency for a long enough period of time, there's no stopping that. You've got the ball rolling, you've got that momentum, you understand that it's possible because you've overcome so much when you get to that point. And I think it's very important that regardless of what you've achieved yet, if you've achieved anything that you think is notable, you've achieved something just by starting, because so many people won't. So many people will keep putting it off and I'll do it tomorrow. I know there's a famous quote that I'm going to absolutely butcher here, but it's something along the lines of, tomorrow's the killer of dreams. So I've probably absolutely mucked it up, but it's very true, because how many people have you heard of that got to, or how many people do you know now that are in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s who will tell you about the opportunities they wish they took, or the businesses they wish they started, or the dreams that they had and they never hit? If you just simply start, you're ahead of those people already, because you've started something that you've got a passion for, you've started something that you know you want to achieve, and you've took action towards it. And I want us to be very thankful for that version of ourselves, because no matter where we're going to be in next week's episode, or in 6 months, in 12 months, same with this podcast, regardless of where it is, there's a version of me now that just started. There's a version of you right now that just started. And we have to thank them for taking that leap, because it took balls. It took genuine balls to just think, we're going to do it. So always be thankful to that version of yourself, because they set you on that path. And sometimes you're going to hate them, because you are going to think, why did you do this to me? But in the end, especially if you just stick to it, you'll be thankful for it. That being said, I'm also probably going to have to thank this version of myself at some point later on down the line, because I know I put this off for as long as possible. I said to myself I was going to start a podcast, and I kept coming up with other tasks. I kept coming up with other reasons why I couldn't start. I kept thinking, but is it going to be worth doing? How much time is it going to take? What about the editing? All this sort of thing. And I know at some point later on down the line, because once I've started it, I won't be able to stop. I know I'm going to have to thank this very first episode, and I'm also going to have to thank all of you guys for watching the first episode, for tuning in. Hopefully some of you guys are here on the long run and will be tuning in every single week. That being said, if you'd like to know when the next episodes are dropping, you can go and check out all of my socials. They are CR Video Editor on the likes of Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram. They'll be across them all. If you're listening on Spotify, it might even be, or Apple, any of the platforms basically, it might be easy for you guys to just head to my website, which is again crvideoeditor.com. At least get my website right. You'll have links to all of my socials there, and you will also be able to find the latest video format of the podcast at the very bottom, so you can tune in at any time. Other than that, these will be dropping every single week. I'm yet to decide a day, but I think it more than likely be on a Monday when I drop the first episode, so keep an eye out for that. Next week, we'll be speaking about embracing failure, something you absolutely love when you start a business. And of course, any questions, any comments, any reviews, anything you guys would like to see next week, by all means, drop it into my DMs or send me an email. Other than that, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I'll catch you guys next time.